Hi, this is Brian, aka Texas Treasures, and today I am starting a new playlist. This is going to be the 100 best business books of all time, as rated by Listopia and available on Goodreads. And the goal of this playlist will be for me to read, analyze, summarize, and then try to apply these 100 best business books into my own personal life and also into my reselling life. So if you're interested in taking this journey with me, please hit the subscribe button below, smash the like button, and comment any questions or comments that you may have in regards to these books. The first book I'll be reviewing is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And today we will be going over chapter 1, Good is the Enemy of Great. So let's get straight into it. All right, first of all, I love this quote by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Lakers great. The good and the great are only separated by the willingness to sacrifice. Sacrifice being key there. All right, in the first chapter, the author starts out with an intro, and here are some of the key points, right? He brings up the point that good is the enemy of great. He asks the question, why is there such a scarcity of greatness? There are very few great companies. And he also made up the point that it's easy to settle at being good. So why is that leap from good to great so difficult for many people to make? Chapter 1 was broken down into some key chunks. Phase 1, as he described it, is the search. And this is the search of what he considers great companies. The criteria to judge this is these are publicly traded companies that had to beat the average stock market return by a 3x, 3 times the average return of a company. It had to be over a 15-year window. So, obviously sustainability is a factor. One of the examples he used was Walgreens. And he says it's possible to turn good into great in the most unlikely of situations. So it's not just a sector or being in the right situation, which is a key factor. Some of the examples included Circuit City, Gillette, Kroger, Philip Morris, Walgreens, Wells Fargo, and there were many others. Questions that I had as I read this part: how are these companies doing since the book was published in the year 2000? I know Philip Morris has struggled, with a lot of their products being tobacco related. Wells Fargo went through some problems a few years ago. And I'm not exactly sure how Kroger is doing. All right, phase 2, the second part, he's asking the question of compared to what? How can you make a judgment about what makes a company great? You have to have a group to compare them to. So he compared these to companies that didn't make the leap to great, being used as a control group, right? Looking for those key differences. And what are the key differences? Phase 3, he used the metaphor of the black box. As we know, black boxes are used on aircrafts to help understand when unfortunate tragedies occur. He using the data to understand. That's, trying to understand what makes a company great. He's looking at data. He's looking at what wasn't found was just as important as what was found. What are the things not found? This one was really interesting. 10 of the 11 CEOs came from within the company. So these were not CEOs coming from outside, but from inside the company. What light does that shed? CEO compensation wasn't the key difference. So it wasn't a matter of just paying a CEO more. Long-term planning wasn't a difference between the two groups. Technology was used, but as an accelerator, not the primary factor, as an accelerator. Mergers between companies was not the factor, and motivation from a leader wasn't used extensively, so that was also not a key explanation. So these are things that were not factors or that were factors. Phase 3 continued. The company, people inside of the company were unaware of the amazing transformation as it took place. It wasn't until they looked back that they realized that, what they were part of. And these companies weren't in the best sectors. So that it kind of implies that it's sectors, being in hot sectors is not the key. Phase 4 is titled Chaos to Concept. He talks about the transformation stages, that you need disciplined people with disciplined thought, and then implementing disciplined action. Obviously, the key word there is discipline. So what is this discipline and how did it affect greatness? There was the build-up phase that eventually led to a breakthrough. You had level 5 leadership. These characteristics of CEOs, they had, which is kind of the opposite. He said this is the opposite of what you would expect, as you would typically think a big, brash personality, but it was actually the opposite. These CEOs had a combination of personal humility and professional will. Think of great leaders like Lincoln, Socrates. They did not have big egos, but they did have a very strong will. Okay, next key point, first who, then what? You got to focus on getting the right people first. That people are one of the key ingredients. So having the right people is very important. They had to be willing to confront the brutal facts, right? The issues, but yet do not lose that faith. And he also discussed the hedgehog concept, right? This is that you're looking for something that's simple yet effective, right? Simple yet effective. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We find something that works, and the metaphor is, a hedgehog finding food, that it will find the most effective path and it will stick to that path. Culture of discipline is one of the key factors. Obviously, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Discipline being key, technology being used as an accelerator. And he also discussed the flywheel and doom loop, being relentless, building momentum, and at a certain point that leads to a tipping point where things begin to accelerate. All right, he talked about there being timeless principles as well. Eras don't matter, that it's not the era that is the key, it's the principles, and that these principles are timeless, that these principles work in every era of transformation. He talked about examples when we had the invention of electricity, we had the telephone era, the automobile era, radio, TV, computer, internet, that all of these eras, that these principles have worked throughout the era. So it's the principles that are the key. And why study this, right? It's not just about businesses. The key concept here relates to the human condition. And these principles can be applied in any field, right? For any person. And that's partly why I'm studying this. And as I said, it works great, or as Jim Collins says, it works great for any organization. So as I finish chapter 1, here are some key takeaways and questions that I had. It seems like discipline and consistency are key. Left this one out, but also finding the right people. Questions, what can I take away from this chapter? How can this relate to my reselling or / YouTube endeavors? And also, what are the current companies that will cut the grade? Comment below. What questions do you have from chapter 1? Or what takeaways do you have from this book? When I think about it, especially in terms of reselling, discipline's important, right? As a reseller, you have to be disciplined. You have to have a disciplined sourcing routine. You have to have a disciplined and consistent listing routine. That also applies to YouTube, right? You have to be consistent from these endeavors. And when I think about having the right people, there's a certain point in your reselling career, and I'm there now, where you've kind of maxed out what a one-person show can do. So as I'm looking to scale up, I need to find the right people. And what are those right people? And I need to ponder more about that as I look to outsource some of my listing primarily, maybe in some of my sourcing, to allow me to do the items that will bring the best return for my reselling business. When I think about current companies, what current companies would cut the grade? Right now, we're kind of in the information technology, right? FANG, we have Facebook. A is for Apple, N is for Netflix, and G is for Google. And then I wondered if these companies were plugged into his search criteria, would they still meet the great label? And I think the only thing that might not come into play would be the length of time, and you'd have to look at each one differently. So once again, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. Appreciate if you smash the like button, and then comment below. What are your takeaways or questions that you have from this? I will be reading and posting another video on each chapter, so chapter 2 will be next. And remember that this series is, I am creating a playlist on the 100 best business books of all time. I'll be analyzing them, summarizing them, and then trying to apply them to my situation. So if you find this useful, smash the like button and subscribe. And until next time, guys, keep reading, keep treasure hunting, and we will see you on the next one.